In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro registered his candidacy for the July 28th presidential elections. In Indonesia, rescuers recovered the bodies of 3 Rohingya refugees after the shipwreck of a boat near Aceh province. And the United Nations Security Council passed for the first time a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza during the month of Ramadan. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Monday, the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, registered his candidacy for the presidential elections of July 28, 2024. Accompanied by a mobilization of Venezuelans who support his candidacy, the current president Nicolás Maduro presented himself to the authorities of the National Electoral Council. The authorities of the CNE received the Venezuelan head of state and recalled that the elections in Venezuela are one of the most transparent in the world and that they are carried out in compliance with the Constitution. During the registration of the Venezuelan president, the first vice president of the United Socialist Party, Diosdado Cabello, highlighted the importance of the model initiated by Commander Chavez, as well as the commitment of the Venezuelan people to the economic and social recovery and the future of the country.
I want to greet to the citizen Nicolás Maduro Moros, the candidate by the United Socialist Party of Venezuela from the big political coalition historical of Venezuela. All the political parties of the big patriotic bloc supporting to Nicolás Maduro Moros with the Socialist Party of Venezuela. The country knows that the streets of Venezuela, more than 317,000 assemblies where the people say the reasons why the Nicolás Maduro should be the president. Now it's being approved and making a tribute to the base of our political party to run our brother President Nicolás Maduro before the National Electoral Council.
During his speech at the National Electoral Council, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro thanked all who have supported his candidacy and reaffirmed that the coalition he is part of does have a project for the future of the country, a project that has been designed after years of sacrifice and debates with the Venezuelan people.
We have a project for a country. Of course that we had. Because we have a plan. It's the result of years of experience from the hardest years and from a wide and permanent consultation and debate with our people.
The Bolivarian president also announced the arrest of 2 members of the far-right opposition party Con Venezuela who were involved in an assassination attempt against him during their rally in support of his presidential candidacy.
Captured today 2 men with weapons that were trying to attempt against my life. They all declared and they form the part of the far-right party, the fascist party in Venezuela. They are in prison and they were captured here in the procession. But they couldn't and they will not surrender us. With the Holy Trinity in front of us, we always conquer.
In Haiti, a young journalist is reported dead after being hit by a bullet due to increasing gun violence. The Haitian journalist killed condemned the death of a reporter named Nerval Pierre, who worked for the Eco News Sport website. The organization also demanded justice for the journalists who have been wounded and have lost their lives during attacks between illegal armed groups in the country. Local media said that from the year 2000 to 2022, around 21 journalists have been killed in the country. High temperatures persist in Costa Rica with values between 2 and 3 degrees above average. The National Institute of Meteorology stated that the highest temperatures in the country were registered in the towns of Palo Verde and Cerro Guacalito with 40.9 and 40.6 degrees Celsius respectively in the North Pacific. In the Central Valley, temperatures were a little cooler, between 33 and 34.5 degrees Celsius. Experts warned that the temperatures recorded during the last days will remain for longer, so they recommend citizens to avoid outdoor activities during the hours of strongest sunshine. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. In Russia, the Moscow Basmany District Court on Sunday revealed that 2 detainees suspect of the recent attack on the Crocus City Hall concert hall have pledged guilty. The detainees, Dalerson Mirzoev and Saida Krami Rasha Balisouda, admitted their guilt in the attacks that killed 100 people. By the decision of the Moscow court, and in order to satisfy the investigators' request, the suspects were remanded in custody. The court also ordered the arrest of Shamsidin Faridjuni and Mohammad Sobir Faisov, 2 more suspects in the terrorist attacks of March 22nd. The attack on the Moscow concert hall left at least 137 dead and 180 wounded. Russia's central bank on Monday recommended that banks and microfinance organizations write off the debts of borrowers killed in last Friday's attacks on the Crocus City Hall concert. The agency noted that lenders should also provide the necessary support to those affected in accordance with the request until full release of obligations under the loan or credit agreement. The shock in Russia continued on Monday following Friday's terrorist attacks, which left 137 dead and more than 100 wounded remain in hospitals. Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Sherritt is in China to commemorate 20 years of diplomatic relations between the two nations. In this way, Sherritt, accompanied by his wife and other senior government officials, were welcomed by China's Deputy Foreign Minister Hua Xinjun. Precisely, Sherritt stated that he intends to hold talks with senior businesses leaders and attend the Boao Forum for Asia in China's Hainan province. In this way, also Sherritt affirmed that they will sign several cooperation agreements which will further cement their strong bilateral ties. On Sunday, Sherritt and his delegation also visited Huawei, China's leading smartphone and technology developer. On the other hand, Hua Xinjing, Assistant Minister of Foreign Affairs, in her account on social network X, highlighted that Dominica is a good friend of trust and a good partner of China in the Caribbean. In this way, the statement pointed out that China-Dominica relations have become a good example of South-South cooperation. In this regard, she further emphasized that the President of China, Xi Jinping, expressed his high appreciation for Prime Minister Sherritt's unwavering commitment to the Dominican-Chinese friendship and assured that both nations seek to develop win-win cooperation and fruitful relations for the greater benefit of their peoples. In Indonesia, rescuers recovered the bodies of 3 Rohingya refugees after the shipwreck of a boat near Aceh province. Local fishermen first spotted the 3 bodies and reported them to local authorities on Saturday. After the rescue of the bodies, the search for survivors from a ship that capsized near Aceh province was ended. On Thursday, fishermen and a team of rescuers had pulled to safety 75 people who remained huddled on the hull of the boat throughout the night. Most were sent to a temporary shelter and others to a local hospital for treatment. The commemoration of the International Day of Remembrance of the Victims of Slavery and the Transatlantic Slave Trade on March 25th seeks to combat the racist legacy of that process and promote justice for the victims. Since 2006, the United Nations General Assembly established the Transatlantic Slave Trade Outreach Program, which designated March 25th of each year as the date to raise awareness of this tragic page in history. The United Nations estimates over 13 million Africans as victims of slavery driven by the racist ideology that these women, men and children were inferior because of the color of their skin. Despite the resilience shown by enslaved people, the racist legacy of the transatlantic slave trade persists today in prejudices and negative beliefs that are still perpetuated and affect people of African descent around the world. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Financial break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. On Monday, the United Nations Security Council passed a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in the Gaza Strip during the month of Ramadan. The resolution, approved with 14 votes in favor and the United States abstention, comes after the ambassador to Mozambique, Pedro Comisario Afonso, presented the draft resolution demanding Israel the cessation of hostilities. The official expressed his gratitude to all the members of the Council for their contributions to this draft resolution and to put an end to the genocide in the Gaza Strip. Afonso stressed that the situation in Gaza is a matter of grave concern for the entire international community because of its catastrophic consequences. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres criticized those who oppose the creation of a free Palestinian state. During a meeting with the Foreign Minister of Jordan, Ayman Safadi, the United Nations Secretary-General insisted that the solution to the conflict in Gaza consists in the creation of 2 states that can fulfill the expectations of both Israel and the people of Palestine. Guterres asserted that a ceasefire is essential and called to move away from the cynicism of surrendering to the dominant assumptions and to reject Tel Aviv's occupation of the Palestinian territories. The United Nations Secretary-General said that the international community is beginning to build consensus to end the Israeli siege against Gaza.
And that is why it is so important that finally the Security Council became able to approve a resolution asking for a ceasefire in Gaza. But at the same time, it is our duty to do everything to mobilize the whole of the international community. And I see a consensus emerging in the international community, even in the countries that are friends and allies of Israel. I see a consensus emerging that this war must stop.
The Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi warned that Israel is not listening to the international community and called for a halt to what he described as radical and racist groups that condemned the future of the region.
The Israeli government is not listening. They're still reaffirming that they will go into Rafah, and I would just conclude by saying that we cannot allow a group of radicals, racist, extremist ministers to doom the future of the region to more conflict and more war, and more immediately, we cannot allow them to continue to kill with impunity.
In Australia, police arrested 19 activists after they organized a protest against the arrival of an Israeli ship in one of Sydney's main ports. Pro-Palestinian activists, including members of the Australian Maritime Union, gathered in Port Botany on Sunday afternoon to protest against the arrival of the container ship Ganges, operated by the Israeli-based shipping company SIM. Waving Palestinian flags and calling for an end to the genocide in Gaza, protesters sought to block the shipment of arms to the Israeli army. And in Jordan, police officers used tear gas to disperse hundreds of demonstrators protesting in front of the Israeli embassy in the capital city of Amman against the latest Israeli assault on hospitals in Gaza and the massacre of civilians. Witnesses reported that those present were beaten and arrested by the police when they tried to break the police cordon around the embassy. The country's authorities allowed the demonstrations. However, they expressed that they will not allow any attempt to storm the Israeli embassy, a place that has been a flashpoint of anti-Zionist protest against the genocide in the Gaza Strip. The number of civil society charities that has increased significantly in Syria since the beginning of the crisis in March 2011 until today. These entities, beyond their charitable action, are one of the main pillars of the country's recovery process in the current post-war period. Let's see the details in the following report by our correspondent Hisham Wanos.
Under the supervision of the Ministry of Social Affairs and Labor, more than 1,700 non-governmental Syrian charities are currently operating throughout Syria for the benefit of its citizens without any distinctions. These charities are dedicated to helping families affected by the war, the blockade, and the earthquake of 2023, and rely mainly on volunteers, humanitarian activists, donors, relevant government institutions, and international humanitarian organizations in their work.
Internally displaced persons constitute the main social sector that we seek to help, both with food baskets and with money. But we have also been present during the coronavirus pandemic, supporting official efforts to ensure vaccines and medicines. And now, with the support of donors and government institutions, we are working to help all families affected by last year's earthquake. We appreciate the work being done by the charities because their work really plays a decisive role in helping citizens to recover the normal course of their lives, so that together with the official management, their performance is essential for people to move forward in the midst of the current difficult economic conditions.
The work of these organizations is not limited to charitable works, such as the distribution of food baskets and the financing of medical treatments and surgeries, but extends to cover other sectors such as job training projects and scientific, medical, heritage, environmental, artistic, literary, and other development initiatives. This work is of vital importance to consolidate the steadfastness of the Syrian people and their determination to move forward in the current difficult circumstances of economic warfare in the country.
Our country suffers from a foreign-imposed economic war, marked by unfair coercive measures and the so-called CESAR law of U.S. sanctions, which added to the repercussions of the coronavirus pandemic and later the effects of the earthquake made life more difficult and significantly reduced the purchasing power and the ability of citizens to finance medical treatments and surgeries. And therefore, the number of people who turn to these charities seeking help to overcome these difficulties is increasing.
Civil society charities in Syria play a role in the current circumstances that complements the government's effort to improve the living standards of citizens. In addition to improving the sense of individual and social responsibility and developing the meaning of teamwork, this work promotes social solidarity as one of the main tools to overcome the aftermath of more than 13 years of war and foreign-imposed blockade.
In Cuba, the broad membership of the classical dance world gathers in Havana to celebrate the 26th International Meeting of Academies for Ballet Education. The celebration will take place from March 22nd to 30th, and it will be dedicated to the 110th anniversary of the birth of Fernando Alonso, who took part in the consolidation of the art of ballet in Cuba. The program includes a competition segment which will be key to stimulate the scenic creation and the preservation of the classical, romantic and neoclassical ballet collection. The meeting will include the participation of professionals from the ballet world to evaluate the performance in each category. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.